Hello everyone and welcome to Endless Romance. One fateful night changed everything. Dr. Kate Reynolds stood frozen in her bedroom doorway, staring at her husband entwined with another woman. In their bed. In her grandmother's house. What happens when a brilliant surgeon who saves lives by day must fight to reclaim her own? A tale of betrayal that ignites an unstoppable quest for justice where the system fails, but a woman's determination prevails. Now let's listen to her story. The fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial's operating room had become more familiar to Catherine Kate Reynolds than the warm glow of her own home. 18 hours she'd stood there, scalpel in hand, fighting death with every precise movement. The massive pileup on I-90 had sent 17 victims through their doors, and she'd personally operated on 6 of them. All 6 would live. That knowledge alone made the burning in her feet and the stiffness in her shoulders worthwhile. "Dr. Reynolds, you should go home," Nurse Martinez said, concern etched in the lines around her eyes. "You've been here since yesterday morning." Kate peeled off her surgical gloves with a snap and tossed them into the biohazard bin. "Just finishing up the charts, Maria. Then I promise I'll leave." She glanced at her watch. 11:05 p.m. Michael wouldn't be expecting her until tomorrow. He thought she was on shift until morning, but the incoming trauma team had arrived early, allowing her a rare reprieve. Their anniversary was just 3 days away. 15 years of marriage, the last few increasingly strained by her demanding schedule and his frequent business trips. Tonight, though, she had a chance to surprise him, to bridge the growing distance between them. The drive from the hospital to their North Shore home took 30 minutes at this hour, the Chicago skyline glittering in her rearview mirror as she headed north on Lake Shore Drive. When she turned onto their street, lined with century-old oaks and stately homes, Kate felt the familiar pride of returning to the Victorian house her grandmother had left her. 3 generations of women in her family had called it home. As Kate pulled into the curved driveway, her headlights swept across an unfamiliar sleek black BMW with tinted windows parked near the side entrance. A client, perhaps? Michael often hosted business associates, though rarely this late. She parked beside it, noticing the personalized license plate. Soft 22. Something cold settled in her stomach as she approached the house. The side door was unlocked, which was unusual for security-conscious Michael. Kate stepped inside quietly, not wanting to disturb if he was in a late meeting. The kitchen was dark, but she could hear sounds from upstairs: laughter, a woman's voice, then Michael's deeper tone. Kate moved through the house like a ghost, her surgeon's footsteps naturally quiet on the hardwood floors. The sounds grew clearer as she ascended the stairs, and with each step, the cold feeling in her stomach spread throughout her body. The master bedroom door was partially open, a sliver of golden light spilling into the hallway. Kate pushed it wider, and the hinges betrayed her with a slight creak. The scene before her burned into her retinas like a camera flash. Michael, her husband of 15 years, naked in their bed with a young woman whose dark hair cascaded across Kate's Egyptian cotton pillowcases. The woman turned first, her eyes widening slightly before her lips curved into what could only be described as a smirk. Michael followed her gaze, and Kate watched as surprise, then irritation, crossed his face. "I thought you were in New York until tomorrow," Michael said, not even attempting to cover himself or show remorse. Kate stood frozen in the doorway, her mind struggling to process what her eyes were seeing. 15 years of marriage. The mortgage she'd paid while he was in business school. The late nights she'd spent alone while he networked. "Clearly," Kate finally managed, her surgeon's steadiness temporarily deserting her as she lunged forward, grabbing the woman by her hair. "In my bed? In my house?" The woman, Sophia, Kate now recognized her from Michael's office parties, yelped in pain, scrambling backward. Michael jumped between them, shoving Kate backward with enough force to send her crashing into their antique mahogany dresser. Pain shot through her hip as it connected with the sharp corner. "You're never here anyway," he spat, standing naked and unashamed before her. "What did you expect? Sophia takes care of my needs while you're playing hero at the hospital." The words hit harder than the physical blow. Kate had spent years believing their arrangement was a partnership, her medical career, and his financial one, each supporting the other through demanding schedules and professional obligations. A frantic barking outside the bedroom door cut through the moment. Maverick, their German shepherd, was throwing himself against the door that someone had closed to keep him out. "Where's Olivia?" Kate demanded, suddenly remembering their daughter. "At a friend's house," Michael responded, reaching for his phone on the nightstand. "And you need to leave before I call the police. This is assault." Kate laughed, a bitter sound that scraped her throat on its way out. "This is my house, Michael. My grandmother's house. You're the one who needs to leave." Michael's face darkened as he dialed 911, his voice steady as he spoke into the phone. "I need to report a domestic assault. My wife has attacked my colleague. Yes, we need police at 472 Lakewood Avenue. Please hurry, I fear for our safety." Kate stared at him in disbelief as he ended the call. "Are you serious right now? You're in our bed with your mistress, and I'm the criminal." Within minutes, police cruisers pulled up outside. Officer Bradley Thompson, who Kate recognized as one of Michael's golfing buddies from Winnetka Country Club, took Michael's statement first. Kate stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with disbelief. "Dr. Reynolds," Officer Thompson said, his voice lacking the warmth of their previous encounters, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with us." As Kate was led away in handcuffs, she locked eyes with Michael, her voice low and laced with a promise of retribution. "Start counting," she whispered. "When I get out, there will be a reckoning." The next morning, she stood before Judge Patricia Wilson, a woman whose reputation for harsh sentences and conservative views on marriage preceded her. Rebecca Chun, Kate's best friend and legal counsel, stood by her side, her expression a mask of professionalism. "Your Honor," Rebecca began, "Dr. Reynolds is a respected surgeon who has dedicated her life to saving others. She came home to find her husband in bed with another woman in her own home." Judge Wilson adjusted her glasses, looking down at Kate with undisguised contempt. "Dr. Reynolds, your position in this community doesn't entitle you to violent behavior. Your profession may have desensitized you to boundaries normal people observe." Kate stood straight, her voice unwavering. "Your Honor, I've spent my career respecting boundaries. The human body's boundaries. The boundary between life and death. My husband crossed the most sacred boundary in our marriage." Judge Wilson's eyes narrowed. "Your self-righteousness is concerning, Dr. Reynolds. Perhaps some time to reflect would benefit you. I'm sentencing you to 90 days for assault and issuing a restraining order barring you from approaching Mr. Reynolds or entering your residence during that time." Kate's mouth fell open in disbelief. "But it's my house, my family home. The property is jointly owned according to these documents," Judge Wilson responded, holding up papers Michael's attorney had provided. Next case. Cook County Correctional Facility was a far cry from the sterile halls of Chicago Memorial. Kate's medical credentials meant nothing here, where she was just another inmate in a 6-by-8-foot cell with a thin mattress and a stainless steel toilet. It was during her second week, while sitting alone in the common area, that she met Denise Walker, a former FBI forensic accountant serving time for whistleblowing on corporate corruption. Through Denise, Kate connected with a network of women who'd been wronged by a system designed to protect men like Michael. "We've all been where you are," Tanya Williams, a former military intelligence officer, told Kate during yard time. "The system isn't designed for women like us to win." "Then we changed the game," Kate responded, her resolve hardening with each passing day. Rebecca brought troubling news during her visits. Michael had moved Sophia into the house, Olivia had been sent to boarding school against her will, and most disturbing of all, Maverick had run away, though Rebecca suspected worse after hearing from neighbors that the dog had been healthy and happy before Kate's arrest. "He's trying to erase me from my own life," Kate said, her hands clenched into fists. "There's more," Rebecca said, lowering her voice. "Detective Morales has been looking into Michael's firm. There are whispers about client funds disappearing offshore accounts. Nothing concrete yet, but..." With Melissa Garcia's guidance from Prison A computer security expert imprisoned for hacking, Rebecca gained access to Michael's private emails and financial records. What they uncovered was staggering. Michael had been embezzling from clients for years, hiding money in offshore accounts. More personally devastating, he'd been siphoning money from Olivia's college fund and Kate's family trust. "He's been planning this for years," Rebecca told Kate. "The affair with Sophia is just part of it. She's helping him manage the offshore transfers. Kate learned that Michael had been manipulating hospital board members to block her promotion to chief of surgery. He'd also been spreading rumors about her mental stability among their social circle. Most disturbing of all, they discovered emails suggesting Michael may have deliberately harmed Maverick. "Problem eliminated," read one message to Sophia, dated the day after Kate's arrest. No more growling guard dog to worry about. When Kate was released after serving her sentence, she emerged transformed. The compassionate healer had been tempered by injustice into something harder, more dangerous. Her team was ready. Rebecca had prepared legal documents and gathered evidence. Denise had mapped Michael's financial crimes. Melissa had created untraceable digital access to Michael's accounts. Tanya had taught Kate self-defense techniques and surveillance methods. Detective Morales had quietly built a case against Michael, waiting for the right moment. Kate's plan unfolded with surgical precision. She established a temporary residence and petitioned for visitation with Olivia. Through Melissa, she accessed and documented all of Michael's financial crimes, anonymously tipping off the SEC and FBI about specific transactions. She contacted Michael's clients directly, providing evidence that their money had been mishandled. She reconnected with hospital board members, sharing evidence of Michael's interference. The pressure mounted on Michael from all sides. His firm launched an internal investigation. Clients began withdrawing their investments. The SEC froze several accounts. Sophia, sensing the ship was sinking, began to distance herself. One night, Michael, desperate and cornered, returned to the house late to retrieve documents hidden in his home office. He was startled to find Kate sitting in the darkened living room, a glass of wine in hand. "You shouldn't be here," he snarled, reaching for his phone. "The restraining order expired last week," Kate finished calmly. "And unlike some people, I respect legal documents. The real ones, anyway." Michael's face paled as understanding dawned. "What have you done?" "I'm a surgeon, Michael. I'm trained to cut out disease." Kate stood, moving toward him with deliberate steps. "And you're a cancer in my life." Michael lunged for the desk drawer where he kept a handgun, but Kate was faster. Tanya's training paying off. She blocked him, using his momentum to slam him against the wall. "I found the emails about Maverick," she hissed, her forearm pressed against his throat. "He was a better judge of character than I was." Michael's eyes widened with fear, but then narrowed with calculation. "You can't prove anything. And Sophia will back me up on everything." Kate laughed, the sound hollow and cold. "Sophia took a deal with the FBI this morning. Seems she doesn't share your loyalty issues." As if on cue, lights flashed outside as police cars pulled up. Detective Morales led a team of officers and FBI agents into the house. "Michael Reynolds," Morales announced. "You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, falsifying legal documents, and animal cruelty." As Michael was led away in handcuffs, he glared at Kate. "This isn't over." Kate watched him go, her voice steady. "Yes, it is. I told you to start counting." In the aftermath, justice unfolded on multiple fronts. Michael was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for his financial crimes. Judge Wilson faced an ethics investigation after her connections to Michael's firm were exposed. Officer Thompson was suspended pending an investigation into misconduct. Kate regained full ownership of her family home, and Olivia returned from boarding school. The hospital board offered Kate the chief of surgery position. 6 months later, Kate hosted a dinner in her backyard. Around the table sat Rebecca, Denise, now released, Melissa, serving the remainder of her sentence under house arrest, Tanya, and Detective Morales. Olivia moved among them, smiling for the first time in months. At her feet played a German Shepherd puppy, not a replacement for Maverick, but a new beginning. "To justice," Rebecca proposed a toast, raising her glass. "And to second chances," Kate added, looking around at her unlikely family. The women who helped her when the system failed, the detective who believed in justice over convenience, her daughter who survived the storm. Kate had learned that healing comes in many forms. Sometimes it's the careful repair of damaged tissue. Sometimes it's the excision of something toxic. And sometimes it's the courage to start again. As the Chicago skyline glittered in the distance, Kate felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Peace. Not the peace of forgiveness, some wounds go too deep for that, but the peace of knowing that no matter what comes next, she has the strength to face it. The wail of police sirens cut through the quiet North Shore neighborhood, blue and red lights reflecting off the pristine white siding of the Victorian home that had been in Kate's family for 3 generations. 2 patrol cars pulled into the curved driveway, gravel crunching under their tires as they came to a stop behind Kate's Audi and the unfamiliar BMW with the personalized license plate. Soft 22. Kate stood in the doorway of her bedroom, arms crossed protectively over her chest, watching as the officers made their way up the walkway. Her medical mind was already cataloging her own injuries, bruising forming on her hip where she'd struck the dresser, a small cut on her palm from a splinter when she'd braced herself against the wall. Nothing serious, nothing like the trauma she dealt with daily in her operating room. The emotional wounds, however, ran deeper than any scalpel could reach. Officer Bradley Thompson was the first to enter, his 6'2" frame filling the doorway as he stepped into the foyer. Kate recognized him immediately, the same man who had accepted Michael's invitation to join the Winnetka Country Club last summer, who had spent countless Sundays on the golf course with her husband while she covered weekend shifts at Chicago Memorial. His gaze swept past her as if she were invisible, landing instead on Michael, who now stood at the top of the stairs, hastily dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. "Michael," Thompson nodded, a familiarity in his voice that made Kate's stomach turn. "Got your call. Everything okay up here?" Michael descended the stairs, his composure fully restored, the perfect picture of a concerned citizen. "Brad, thanks for coming so quickly. It's difficult." He lowered his voice, though not enough that Kate couldn't hear. "Kate came home unexpectedly and found me with a colleague. She became violent, attacked Sophia. I had to physically restrain her." Kate stepped forward, indignation burning in her chest. "That's not what happened," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I came home and found my husband in bed with another woman. In my house." Officer Thompson barely glanced at her before turning back to Michael. "Is the other woman okay?" As if on cue, Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs, her dark hair now neatly combed, wearing what Kate recognized as one of her own silk blouses. The younger woman's eyes were red and puffy, tears streaking her perfectly applied makeup. A performance worthy of an Oscar. "She attacked me," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "I was so scared. She grabbed my hair and threatened me." The second officer, a younger man whose nameplate read Diaz, approached Kate. "Ma'am, we need to hear your side of the story." Kate took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. 18 years of medical training had taught her to remain calm in crises, to present facts clearly and concisely. "I came home from an 18-hour shift at Chicago Memorial to find my husband in bed with his assistant. This is my family home. Inherited from my grandmother." I reacted. Emotionally, yes, but I did not threaten anyone's safety. "My husband," she emphasized the word bitterly, "pushed me into the dresser when he intervened." Officer Diaz nodded, jotting notes in his pad, but Officer Thompson had already made up his mind. He conferred briefly with his partner before turning to Kate. "Dr. Reynolds, we're going to need you to come with us. You're being arrested for assault and battery." Kate stared at him in disbelief. "You're arresting me? In my own home? When I'm the one who was betrayed?" "The law doesn't care about adultery, ma'am," Thompson said coldly. "But assault is a crime." As Officer Diaz recited her rights, Kate looked past him to where Michael stood with his arm now around Sophia, the younger woman nestled against his chest in a pose of vulnerability. The smirk playing at the corner of Michael's mouth told her everything she needed to know. This had been planned, perhaps not tonight specifically, but he had prepared for this eventuality. "I need to call my attorney," Kate said as Officer Diaz produced handcuffs. "You can do that at the station," Thompson replied, nodding to his partner. The cold metal of the handcuffs closed around Kate's wrists with a final sounding click. She winced as they bit into her skin, too tight, but she wouldn't give Thompson the satisfaction of complaining. As they led her toward the door, Maverick's frantic barking resumed from somewhere in the house, the loyal German shepherd sensing his owner's distress. "What about my dog?" Kate asked, suddenly concerned. "And my daughter needs to know what's happening." "I'll take care of everything," Michael called after her, his voice dripping with false concern. "Don't worry about Olivia or the dog." Something in his tone sent a chill down Kate's spine. As they reached the patrol car, she turned for one last look at the house, her grandmother's house, the place where she'd planned to raise her daughter, the home she'd worked so hard to maintain while supporting Michael's career. He stood in the doorway, Sophia still tucked under his arm, watching as Kate was loaded into the back of the police car like a common criminal. The ride to the North Shore Police Department was a blur of flashing lights and pounding adrenaline. Kate, a woman accustomed to saving lives, found herself confined in a cold, sterile cell, treated like a common criminal. The indignity of it all was almost unbearable. The holding cell was small but clean, with a narrow bench along one wall and a stainless steel toilet in the corner. Kate sat with her back straight, hands folded in her lap, ignoring the curious stares from the desk sergeant. She was still wearing her hospital scrubs, the light blue fabric now wrinkled and stained from her encounter with Michael. The irony wasn't lost on her. 18 hours saving lives, only to end up here treated like a criminal. Rebecca Chun arrived just after midnight, her petite frame radiating fury as she demanded to see her client. Kate had never been more grateful for her best friend's legal expertise or her unwavering loyalty. "This is ridiculous," Rebecca said as soon as they were alone in the consultation room. "Absolutely ridiculous. They're charging you with assault? In your own home?" Kate nodded wearily, the events of the night catching up with her. "Michael had it all planned out, Becca. The way he called Thompson specifically, the documents he showed them claiming joint ownership of the house." Rebecca's dark eyes narrowed. "That house has been in your family for 3 generations. Your grandmother's will was explicit, it passed directly to you, not into the marital estate." "Tell that to Officer Thompson," Kate said bitterly. "He didn't even look at me, just took Michael's word for everything." Rebecca reached across the table, squeezing Kate's hand. "We'll fight this. First thing tomorrow, we'll get you before a judge and sort this whole mess out." But the next morning brought no relief. Judge Patricia Wilson's courtroom was a study in austere efficiency, the woman herself a formidable presence on the bench. At 65, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and reading glasses perched on her aquiline nose, she had a reputation for harsh sentences and traditional values. Kate stood before her, hands clasped to stop them from shaking, as Rebecca presented their case. "Your Honor," Rebecca began, her voice clear and confident, "Dr. Catherine Reynolds is a respected trauma surgeon at Chicago Memorial Hospital. She has saved countless lives, including that of Officer Martinez's partner just last month during that terrible shootout on the South Side. She has no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. She came home after an 18-hour shift to find her husband in bed with another woman in her own home, a home she inherited from her grandmother." Judge Wilson's expression remained impassive as Rebecca continued, detailing Kate's contributions to the community, her volunteer work at the free clinic, her mentorship of young female medical students. When Rebecca finished, the judge turned her gaze to Kate, eyes cold behind her glasses. "Dr. Reynolds," Judge Wilson began, her voice carrying the slight southern accent of her Alabama upbringing, "your attorney paints quite a picture of your professional accomplishments. However, I'm concerned about your apparent belief that your position in this community somehow entitles you to violent behavior. Your profession may have desensitized you to boundaries normal people observe." Kate felt a flush of anger rise in her cheeks but kept her voice steady. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this has nothing to do with entitlement. I came home to find my husband of 15 years in bed with another woman. In my home. The home my grandmother left to me." Judge Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly. "Continue, Dr. Reynolds." Kate took a deep breath. "Your Honor, I've spent my career respecting boundaries. The human body's boundaries. The boundary between life and death. My husband crossed the most sacred boundary in our marriage." A murmur ran through the courtroom, quickly silenced by the sharp rap of Judge Wilson's gavel. The older woman leaned forward, her gaze boring into Kate. "Your self-righteousness is concerning, Dr. Reynolds. Perhaps some time to reflect would benefit you. I'm sentencing you to 90 days for assault, and issuing a restraining order barring you from approaching Mr. Reynolds or entering your residence during that time." Kate's mouth fell open in shock. "But it's my house, my family home." Judge Wilson held up a sheaf of papers, the same ones Michael had shown the police. "The property is jointly owned according to these documents," she said dismissively. Next case. Rebecca was already on her feet, objecting strenuously, but the judge waved her off. My decision is final, counselor. You're welcome to appeal, of course. As the bailiff approached to lead Kate away, she caught sight of Michael sitting in the back of the courtroom, Sophia beside him. He wore the same smug expression he'd had the night before, the look of a man who believed he'd won. Beside him, Sophia's face was a mask of false sympathy, her hand resting possessively on Michael's arm. Kate locked eyes with her husband as she was led past him toward the door that would take her to the holding area. Start counting, she whispered, her voice low but clear. When I get out, there will be a reckoning. Michael's smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered, leaning over to whisper something in Sophia's ear that made the younger woman laugh. But Kate had seen it, that brief flash of uncertainty in his eyes. He knew her well enough to recognize the promise in her words. The processing into Cook County Correctional Facility was a blur of forms, fingerprinting, and the humiliation of a strip search. Kate surrendered her scrubs for an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on her slender frame. Her surgical hands, instruments of healing that had held countless human hearts, were now empty, the nails cut short by prison regulations. Her cell was 6 feet by 8 feet, with a thin mattress on a metal frame, a stainless steel toilet sink combination, and a small shelf for personal items, though she had none yet. The door clanged shut behind her with a finality that made her flinch. Alone for the first time since her arrest, Kate sat on the edge of the mattress and allowed herself a moment of despair. Tears slid silently down her cheeks as she thought of Olivia, who would come home from her friend's house to find her mother gone and her father's mistress installed in her place. She thought of Maverick, the loyal German shepherd who had been at her side for 7 years, now at the mercy of a man who had never wanted the dog in the first place. But as quickly as the tears came, Kate wiped them away. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Michael had underestimated her, as he always had. He thought her strength was limited to the operating room, her precision confined to her scalpel. He had no idea what she was capable of when pushed to her limits. The days blurred together in a monotonous cycle of meals, head counts, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights. It was during her second week that Kate met Denise Walker, a former FBI forensic accountant serving time for exposing corporate corruption. Denise had seen the worst of what power and money could do, and she recognized the look in Kate's eyes. "You're angry," Denise said one day in the common area, her voice low and measured. "And you have every right to be." Kate nodded, the admission feeling like a small release of pressure. "He betrayed me, in my own home, and the system, it failed me." Denise leaned back, her gaze thoughtful. "The system isn't designed for women like us to win, but that doesn't mean we can't change the game." As the weeks passed, Kate found herself drawn into a network of women who had been wronged by the very systems that were supposed to protect them. Tanya Williams, a former military intelligence officer, had been imprisoned for defending herself against an abusive ex-husband. Melissa Garcia, a computer security expert, was serving time for hacking into her ex-husband's company after he framed her for embezzlement. "We've all been where you are," Tanya told Kate during yard time, her voice carrying the weight of shared experience. "The system isn't designed for women like us to win." "Then we changed the game," Kate replied, her resolve hardening with each passing day. Rebecca visited regularly, bringing updates from the outside world. Michael had moved Sophia into the house, Olivia had been sent to a boarding school against her will, and Maverick, their loyal German shepherd, had run away. But the neighbors' stories didn't add up, and Rebecca suspected foul play. "He's trying to erase me from my own life," Kate said, her hands clenched into fists. "There's more," Rebecca said, lowering her voice. "Detective Morales has been looking into Michael's firm. There are whispers about client funds disappearing offshore accounts. Nothing concrete yet, but..." Kate lay back on the thin mattress, staring up at the ceiling. 90 days. Michael thought he had 90 days to dismantle her life, to erase her from her own home, to turn Olivia against her. He thought he had all the time in the world. But Kate had learned something important in her years as a trauma surgeon: time was always shorter than you thought. Every second counted, and Michael's time was already running out. In the quiet of her cell, Kate began to plan. When she closed her eyes, she could see her grandmother's face, the woman who had raised her after her parents died. who had taught her that Reynolds women were made of steel beneath their silk. Never start a fight, her grandmother used to say, but always finish one. And Kate intended to finish this one. Michael had no idea what was coming for him. No idea at all. As Kate drifted into an exhausted sleep on her first night in prison, her last conscious thought was of Michael's smug face in that courtroom. She imagined the moment when he would realize his mistake, when he would understand that he hadn't just betrayed a wife, he had created an enemy with nothing left to lose. Start counting, Michael. The reckoning is coming. Cook County Correctional Facility was a far cry from the sterile halls of Chicago Memorial. The antiseptic scent of hospital corridors had been replaced by the harsh smell of industrial disinfectant and unwashed bodies. The controlled chaos of the emergency room, where Kate had commanded respect with a single word, seemed like a distant memory as she shuffled forward in the intake line, orange jumpsuit hanging loosely on her frame. "Reynolds, Catherine," the corrections officer called, not looking up from her clipboard. Kate stepped forward, her canvas shoes squeaking against the polished concrete floor. "Present." Officer Martinez finally glanced up, recognition flickering briefly in her eyes. "Dr. Reynolds? From Chicago Memorial." Kate nodded stiffly, aware of the curious stares from the women around her. She recognized the officer, now Elena Martinez, whose mother had undergone emergency cardiac surgery under Kate's hands just last year. "My mother still talks about you," Officer Martinez said quietly, her professional demeanor softening slightly. "Says you gave her a second chance at life. How is she doing?" Kate asked, grateful for this small moment of normalcy in the surreal nightmare her life had become. "She's good. Back to making tamales every Sunday." Officer Martinez hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Look, I can't do anything about you being here, but I'll make sure you're assigned to a decent cell block. Medical wing. It's quieter there." Kate nodded her thanks, unable to speak past the sudden lump in her throat. It was a small kindness, but in this place, small kindnesses felt monumental. The medical wing of the women's facility housed mostly non-violent offenders and those with chronic health conditions. Kate's cell was a standard 6 by 8 foot concrete box with a metal bunk, a stainless steel toilet sink combination, and a narrow window set high in the wall that let in a sliver of Chicago's gray winter light. Her medical credentials meant nothing here, where she was just another inmate in a 6 by 8 foot cell. That first night, lying on the thin mattress with its scratchy sheets, Kate stared at the underside of the top bunk and tried to make sense of how quickly her life had unraveled. Just 72 hours ago, she had been Dr. Catherine Reynolds, respected trauma surgeon, saving lives with steady hands and quick decisions. Now she was inmate number 4289, stripped of her identity, her home, her daughter, and her dignity. Sleep eluded her as her mind raced with questions and fears. What was happening to Olivia? Had Michael really gotten rid of Maverick? How could he have falsified documents about her grandmother's house? The property had been in her family for 3 generations, passed down from her grandmother directly to her, not into the marital estate. The will had been explicit. During her first week, while organizing medical supplies in the infirmary's small storage closet, Kate met Denise Walker. The former FBI forensic accountant was serving 18 months for exposing corruption in a major pharmaceutical corporation where she had worked after leaving the bureau. She came to the infirmary complaining of migraines, but her sharp eyes took in Kate's demeanor with professional interest. "You're new," Denise observed as Kate checked her blood pressure. "But you're not a typical inmate." "Doctor." Kate nodded, impressed by the woman's perception. "Trauma surgeon. Or I was until 3 days ago." Denise's lips curved in a humorless smile. "Let me guess. Man trouble." "How did you know?" "Because women like us don't end up here for drugs or theft or violence. We end up here because we crossed a man with power, or we refused to look the other way, or we fought back when we should have stayed quiet." Denise rolled down her sleeve as Kate removed the blood pressure cuff. "I'm Denise Walker, former FBI forensic accountant. I blew the whistle on Meridian Pharmaceuticals for falsifying clinical trial data. They made sure I paid for it." Through Denise, Kate was introduced to her small circle of friends. Tanya Williams, a former military intelligence officer serving time for assault after defending herself against her abusive ex-husband, was a tall, athletic woman with close-cropped gray hair, and the watchful eyes of someone who had seen combat. Melissa Garcia, petite with dark curly hair streaked with premature silver, had been a computer security expert before being framed by her husband for embezzlement when she discovered his affairs. "We've all been where you are," Tanya told Kate as they walked the perimeter of the yard, breath fogging in the cold Chicago air. "The system isn't designed for women like us to win." "Then we changed the game," Kate responded, her resolve hardening with each step. Melissa nodded, a sly smile playing at her lips. "Now you're talking my language. Systems can be hacked, especially when the people running them think they're invulnerable."